Hi, Towanna Freeman here with Black Life Coaches. We have a fantastic interview for you today. One of the things I enjoy most about this platform is being able to meet people that have done some incredible things with their lives, who've transitioned from one point to another. But we have all heard the statement or the saying, never judge a book by its cover. And that is a perfect setup for my guest today. Our guest is Yannik McKie. He is a phenomenal gentleman, a young man who's taken his life from one extreme to the other. And I will not give you the details of his story because I encourage you to purchase the book. That's what we're about. We're about supporting each other. But I want to welcome to Black Life Coaches Yannik McKie. Welcome. How are you?
Hey, Tawana, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
You know, Unique, you and I have had the opportunity to work together. We were together in St. Thomas
Yes,
with
yes.
Devin Robinson. One of the things that, I loved about your story, actually, when I first heard you speak, you were speaking to this audience of professionals, helping them with their entrepreneurship dreams and aspirations. But one thing that floored me was just some of the things that came out of your mouth regarding the things that happened to you from the very beginnings of your youth all the way up to your adolescent years and just crossing your adolescent years. It's an incredible story. But you know what? The book is called Living in the Shadows. Now, the one thing that you did as you were talking about entrepreneurship, you talked about pressing through adversities. And so our interview today is going to discuss the story in a very high level, but more so what you're doing with the story to make changes in people's lives. So let's start with the first question. What inspired you to write Living in the Shadows?
I saw a lot of people struggling through pain and problems in their life and not being able to use it for their benefit. Um, I believe that God has gifted all of us with great purpose, and sometimes our plans don't always go as we would like them to. There are roadblocks, there are problems, there are speed bumps, and if we don't learn how to handle those problems and use them for productivity, then you're not going to achieve any of your goals. And the I guess the main thing that really inspired me to write Living in the Shadows was I got tired of seeing people fail because of their problems. As you know, I lost both of my parents to AIDS at a very young age, and that was a tremendous stumbling block for me. And I did not understand how I was going to move forward in my life because of that problem. And I had to figure out how to use it. I had to figure out how to overcome that challenge and maximize the potential that I believe God had given me. So I really wanted to be able to teach other people how to use your problems for productivity, how to overcome your adversity and achieve God's purpose for your life.
That from that experience alone, your life took several turns, not just one turn, two turn. We're talking multiple transitions and
Right.
and the path that you ended up on. I To this day, Unique, every time I think about your story, I get tears in my eyes because it is a miraculous story. But I want to ask you about the hardest part, um, the hardest part about losing your parent. Because as a young man, in the beginning of, when you first had to accept the fate of your parents, that's a lot to carry and put on the shoulders of a young man.
Well, I was 11 years old when I found out that both of my parents were HIV positive, and immediately my life changed. I believe the hardest thing for me was understanding how a loving God would allow someone to experience such a high level of tragedy. And I was so angry and I became so upset that it began to affect every decision that I made. And again, back to your initial question, that's what inspired me to write the book because I get so tired of seeing young people, who are going through just things that we can't even imagine, n- n- allowing those things to stop them from doing what God has called and created them to do. I really believe that I call it my principles of overcoming adversity. You got to understand that God let it happen. You got to figure out how you're going to look at it. You got to have a positive perspective. You got to learn from it, and then you got to launch from it. I truly believe that when I first received that news, because of my immaturity and because nobody explained to me that God can love you and still allow some negative things to happen, because if it were not for those negative things, you would not understand how to trust him. You would be leaning on your own understanding. But
Yeah.
when you go through a situation that's outside of your control, it's usually because God is trying to teach you something that you could not have learned without that circumstance. You're a doctor. You understand that at a very young age, a child's parents are his or her God.
Yeah.
And I lost both of my gods. I lost my mother and I lost my father. And I did not understand how to use that. I did not understand how to overcome that. And because of that pain, I made I guess would say a whole lot more problems to come into my life. I went into drug abuse. I went into sexual promiscuity. I went into selling drugs and dealing with a whole lot of other illegal activity because I did not understand how to process my pain. And that's really what I try to help young adults, and youth with, learning how to process your pain, trying to get people to face the music. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, you may be in a valley right now,
Yes.
but if you will decide that you really want to make it through that valley, if you stop feeling sorry for yourself long enough, pick up the pieces to that puzzle, you will see that God can and will do something awesome with your life if you can learn how to trust him again. And that's a process I had to go through, just really learning how to trust God again after being let down.
Let's talk about the seeds that were planted in your life that you were running away from that ended up coming back around for you.
Oh, wow, wow. Well, I was taught about God at a very young age. I remember one time my mom came into my bedroom and I was writing, and she said, "Unique, what are you doing?" I said, "Mom, I'm copying the Bible." She said, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Well, if anybody ever breaks into our house and steals my Bible, I want to have an extra copy." That's how I was at a very young age. I loved God. I was very intrigued by God and Christ and what he did for me on the cross. And I really believe that's why I was targeted by the enemy, to be quite honest. But because I was chosen, God did have an awesome purpose for my life. And my mother put me into a Christian private school at a young age. I was taught the word of God, and I was taught to trust it. But Tawana, let me tell you what the problem is with that. The problem is nobody tells you that God's love for you comes through pain at times.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody tells you God loves you, God will protect you, God will never let anything bad happen to you. And suffice it to say, that's just bad theology. I mean, Job chapter 1, it was God who called out Job.
Mm-hmm.
Satan could not do anything until God lowered that hedge of protection and gave Satan permission to do what God knew would work out for Job's benefit at the end. So nobody told me that. Nobody came to my side and said, "You know what, Unique? I know you're going through a painful time. I know you don't understand it all, son, but God is going to work this out. God will work all things out for good for those who love him and have been called according to his purpose." I'm amazed, Tawana, and this is where I get my passion from, that nobody came to me and told me that. Now, I had people who came alongside me, my mom and dad. I call them my mom and dad now, who helped me. But nobody from the church was able to explain to me what in the world was going on in my life. And because of that, I had to find these answers out on my own. And I had to go through a whole lot more than I believe God even wanted me to go through to get to the point to where I'm at now. So I thank God for giving me that biblical foundation, because when you raise a child up in the way that he should go, when he's old, he won't turn away from it. But I really, when I look back on it, wish that somebody would have been able to explain to me that God can love you and at the same time allow you to go through some painful and strenuous situations.
You know, that is deliverance right there for a lot of people. Those words right there have will set into motion deliverance for a number of people who are listening to you right now, because a lot of people do not know that. And I believe that you just brought up and elevated something that is so important for everyone that's listening to understand. And this is just an example, a small nugget of who you are and what you stand for and why I respect your ministry and your call and the story. You know, your memoir, Living in the Shadows, is just, it's just the beginning of so much. I understand there's a documentary that is actually being developed on this story, on your story. And tell me a little bit about how that happened.
Wow, wow. Well, I'm very excited about the documentary, Tawana. Long story short, I was at the Potter's House in Jacksonville speaking, and the director and producer of the film, Frank B. Good in the second, heard my story, and we were introduced to each other, and really just hit it off. He's a dynamic man of God, and we knew we were going to do something. We were praying about it, and this was over 2 years ago, and God has worked it out to where we can finally begin to work on this project. We I guess the catalyst behind it all is really just us wanting more people to hear this story. And what I want people to know is I'm telling not just my story, but their story. All of us have gone through things in our life that we do not understand, that if we had the choice, we would have opted out. And those of us who have become successful, if we look back, it was because of that pain, it was because of that problem that we're on the level that we're on today.
Mhm.
So I'm really just telling everybody's story, Tawana. It's a complete philanthropic endeavor. I could have got a couple investors and tried to get rich with this story, but that's not the way I was led. God told me to do it through my foundation. So all proceeds will be going back to the Mackey Foundation. Frank Gooden is a sponsor. All proceeds from distribution will be going back to the Mackey Foundation so that we can help more hurting children. You know as well as I do that the suicide rates
Mhm.
are at their highest level, and it's really hurting me to see so many children, just to put it simply, giving up on life because they don't feel anybody has the answers.
Right.
And I believe that God allowed me to go through what I went through so I could pull people out of that pit and teach them how to use whatever pain they're feeling for productivity in their life. I believe that's my calling. I believe that's what I've been gifted to do, is to take people from where they are to where God has called them to be. So this documentary is just a tool I believe God has given me. You know, you know how we do it, Tawana. A lot of us don't read. So I believe by, actually showing people my story, that as opposed to getting it to thousands, I can get it to millions.
Right. You know, our guest today is Yannik McKie. He is the author of Living in the Shadows. And the subtitle to the book is Adversity Creates Purpose. Is that the title of the documentary?
Yes, yes, ma'am. It's titled directly after the book.
Okay. And so, there's so much I already know about you, and you are a great speaker, and people would benefit from having you show up into not only their churches but their office. Like I said, you are a businessman, and you did a fantastic job at the Power Move conference, where we initially met, and you had those people completely engaged. You know, this just to give a peek, you were facing a lot of prison time. You were you had that. I think that's the part that I could not have even guessed. I mean, there was so much to your story that was like, okay, after the loss, then I could see, drugs and promiscuity, but I did not expect the prison time that you were facing. And that part of it was like as if the story couldn't get any worse. That was the problem I was having at the moment as I was listening to you share just a little bit about who you were, because I kept thinking it was bad round one, round two, round three. Can it get any worse for any one person?
Right.
And that's the part that blew me away, is how you were able to come through all of that to the man you are today. So let me ask you, you know, give me a message for our parents who have young people right now who could be in the streets, or who could be disappointed because of the circumstances surrounding life. Maybe it's a single parent household. Maybe they're children in foster care. Maybe they're children who have given up, just as much as some of your friends that you grew up with, that you talk about in this book, have all had some type of adversities, as you say. So talk to them, to the parents, and give them something that they can walk away with that will allow them to be a little bit more inspired and empowered on how to help the young peoples in their life.
I would say one thing I know, Tawana, worked for me, and that was the prayer of people I couldn't see. I would not be here today if it was not for my second mother, Carol Daniels. This is the most powerful woman I've ever met. She was my counselor. She was praying for me when I did not want it, when I did not ask for it. She was the person that told me, in the midst of just no evidence at all. She said to me one day, she was like, Yannik, you know what? One day you could be a youth pastor. I mean, she saw my leadership ability in a negative way and said, you know what, son, one day you can lead people in a positive direction. So one answer to your question would be prayer. Never stop praying. Never stop believing that things can get better. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Sometimes we allow those valleys that we go through to change our positive perspective. Even though your child may be in a valley, even though you may be in a valley, don't let that valley change your positive perspective. If you are praying over that child, don't quit. Don't start to believe that problem has more power than God does. Mm-hmm. That's one thing on a spiritual level, but on a practical level, this is what I would say. I would say sometimes parents talk too much. We talk too much. Sometimes we need to sit our children down and just let them vent. Because if you don't know what they're thinking, how can you help them? And that's the one thing that my mother did for me. Carol, she sat me down and she let me vent. She let me be angry. She let me feel like it was okay to be upset, to not want to move forward. She was a counselor without a counselor's degree, because what she did for me was made me feel okay. And just by not even giving me advice, just letting me vent, made me feel better and made me want to try, because I knew somebody was there that loved me. And love conquers all. Don't be angry with your children because they're not making all the decisions you believe they should make. Some of us have short memories. Sometimes I look at my son and I'm like, Jalen, what are you doing? But then when I think about it, I'm like, Yannik, you did the same thing. So we've got to love our children. And I truly believe through love and prayer and conversation and the correct communication that we can lead our children out of any valley that they're in.
Absolutely. Again, our guest is Yannik McKie, and Yannik, you are going to what you've done is help set the platform for us to give at this point. So I want to encourage all our viewers to follow the link below this video so that you can help to fund this documentary. This is a type of positive, movie content that we need in our televisions, on DVDs, in our libraries, because we are inundated with things that don't work. We're inundated with things that are inappropriate. Let's start funding the things that we believe. If you are listening to this and you are a person who is about positive change, let this be your moment where you then contribute to something that needs to get out. So I would encourage you to follow the link below so that you can make a donation. Yannik, can you give us the information on how people can contribute?
Yes, Tawana, thank you so much. They can go to www.mackiefoundation.com, and that is McKiefoundation, and they can click the donate button. And all those proceeds will go directly to funding this documentary and helping children to overcome their challenges. I'm also doing book signings across the country. I'm doing revival, preaching and teaching also to help raise money for the documentary. So if anybody's out there and they would like to book me, they can go to yannickmckie.com, and that's www.yannickmckie.com, and they can fill out that speaker's information, and I'll get it, and we'll try to get out there and do something positive for that community, and at the same time, you'll be helping what I believe is a tremendous cause.
Absolutely. And, there are a number of my friends who are in ministry, your pastors, your bishops. I know you're watching. So you know what I need you to do. I need you to go ahead and contact Yannik or send me a quick text message. You know who you are, so that I can go ahead and pass his contact information on. At the end, what is it that you want people to walk away with after watching the documentary?
That is nothing God can't do. I want people to look at my pain. I want people to feel my pain, but I also want them to see my purpose. The greater your pain, the greater your purpose. And I want people to see that no matter what you may be going through, no matter what you have experienced in your life, God can make it better. God can and will use that negative for a positive in your life if we trust him.
Absolutely. Well, that's the way we end this wonderful interview with Yannik McKie. Thank you for your time. I appreciate everything that you're doing. And I would love to have you back as you guys get closer and closer to, finishing things up so we can help promote the message and get some sales for that documentary.
Thank you so much, Dr. Freeman. I appreciate you and your ministry here. You're doing awesome things. I hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely. In fact, I look forward to talking to you. Tell your wife I said hello.
I will do. You be good, okay?
Thank you.
I kind of prepared myself for the worst because at this point in my life, I had made some really bad decisions. I had been involved in some really negative things, and I didn't know if this would be my last day. So I kind of just stood there and prepared myself for the worst. And before I knew it, there were 4 men that jumped out of that Ford Excursion, and there was a 45 in my face. And all I heard was Yannik, get down. It was the ATF.